for 5 years before meeting Licht, a masked perverted idiot, and his boss, Nana, who explains that everyone must obey orders from anyone with a higher number. Hina explains that her number, 441, represents the 44,100 kilometers she has walked. A sergeant major with a star on his face claims to be the ace. When she meets him, he attempts to molest her until she reveals the 10,000 orb, which he misidentifies as a ballot and attempts to steal. As Hina has a higher number, she orders him to stop. However, he tricks her into a star stake, a duel in which they bet on their respective numbers, and after severely defeating her, he takes 440 from her, leaving her with only one. As the legend of the ace is 300 years old, he reveals he is not the ace, as the ace has long since passed away. Licht arrives unexpectedly and bets his own number, -999. As they engage in combat, the sergeant realizes that such a number is impossible, unless Licht is a ballot holder with a numbered ballot to artificially raise his number above 0. Licht reveals himself to be Lichtbach, the true legendary ace, with a white star and the number of foes he has defeated, 5,700. Printed on his sword. Several centuries ago, a global conflict known as the Waste War raged. A group of warriors known as the Aces distinguished themselves with superhuman feats of strength, only to vanish when the war ended. Super speed enables him to easily defeat the soldiers, demonstrating that his footsteps are powerful enough to shatter the ground. Nana explains that while 570 represents the number of his defeated foes, -999 represents the number of women who have rejected him. Licht defeats the sergeant with ease, reducing his number to 1 and giving Hina hers back, plus some. Licht steals Hina's 10,000 ballots and gives her a stuffed doll in return. Hina is devastated by the loss of her mother's memento. Nana reveals later that Licht hid the ballot in the doll and pretended to steal it in front of witnesses. Since ballots are illegal, so the soldiers will only search for him and leave Hina alone. Hina tries tearfully to prevent Licht from leaving, but when he disregards her pleadings, she yells that she despises him, increasing his score from -999 to -1,000. The army disregards Hina and begins searching for Licht, believing that he is in possession of the ballot. Master Sergeant Lin Mei and her subordinate, Sergeant Peel Paporo, are stationed in a tranquil village where Lin spends her time volunteering and increasing her count based on the number of needy people she assists. On the basis of a description of Licht, Lin apprehends a nearby masked man who, coincidentally, is Licht. However, he maintains his anonymity by revealing his -1,000 and weeping over the women who rejected him. Following Peel's terrible advice, Lin attempts to help Licht feel better by setting them up on a pity date. However, Licht's typical groping behavior causes Lin's count to rise. As the groping helps the perverted Licht feel better, Lin removes Licht's mask to reveal his identity. Licht steals her sword, only to discover that Lin is a martial artist as well. During their brief altercation, she becomes so agitated by Licht's flirting that he is able to escape. When she closes her eyes expecting a kiss, much to her annoyance, Licht reappears and she pursues him through the village, where several misunderstandings cause the villagers to believe she and Licht are having a lover's quarrel, and Licht escapes once more when she complains that her uniform always exposes her underwear. Hina determines that she must warn Licht about Lieutenant Murdoch, but she is unable to do so because they must first rebuild Nana's wagon. Licht saves Lin from harm when Murdoch and his soldiers suddenly attack him, along with his ballot, which enables him to create iron weapons. Murdoch's number is revealed to be 900, hence his nickname Iron Jail. Licht is surprisingly overwhelmed, and Murdoch reveals that he conceals his true number, that is 12,500, which is more than twice that of Licht. Murdoch is able to obtain Licht's sword, but he returns it. He reveals that his number represents his convictions and that his unbreakable iron weapons are strengthened by his convictions. He traps Licht so Licht surrenders. Murdoch accuses Licht, based on his fighting style, of having been a soldier. Murdoch decides to torture Licht after he refuses to answer, but Lin intervenes and is injured. Murdoch berates Lin because he is disgusted by her refusal to punish criminals in favor of her charity work. Licht escapes his restraints, revealing that he has always been capable of breaking the Murdoch's iron. As he and Murdoch unleash their true abilities, Licht demands an apology from him for assuming Lin is lazy. Despite the fact that she consistently outworks everyone, Lin falls after their fight causes a cliff to collapse, and a repentant Murdoch tries to catch her. but Licht catches her first. He manages to insult her, infuriating her and decreasing his count to -1001. Then he gives her to Murdoch, who allows him to escape. Hina and Nana discover Licht and inform him that after his battle with Iron Jail Murdoch, all roads have been blocked. Hina appears envious that Licht is fighting for another woman and reprimands him for abandoning her. Licht is compelled to prevent Pelmo from falling to her death from an experimental aircraft. Pelmo asks Licht and Hina to help her realize her dream of flight. Despite the fact that researching flight is a capital offense, Licht modifies her most recent design but is concerned that he has put her in danger. Despite Hina's praise, Hina asks Licht what his dream is, but he refuses to reveal it and instead says he wants to see her underwear. Pelmo interrupts after completing the new aircraft. The arrival of soldiers forces Licht to destroy the aircraft. The soldiers depart after concluding that the wings were merely damaged windmill sails. Pelmo reveals that her count was based on her dreams coming true, but it decreased each time her airplanes failed to fly, and it has now reached 0. Hina attempts to rescue her, but the Abyss resists. When the Abyss strikes Licht's sword while he attempts to save Hina, he experiences a violent flashback. Pelmo enters the Abyss joyfully, convinced that it is not death, but the entrance to another world, and promises to return one day. Licht is nearly rendered unconscious as numbers flash in his left eye. Licht considers leaving, but ultimately decides to stay after Hina asks him to stay in her sleep. Lin catches up with Licht, thanks him for rescuing her, and then attempts to arrest him. Lin and Hina, having met, exchange stories about how they know Licht and become angry with him. They encounter a wounded soldier from a completely destroyed neighboring town. Murdoch finds no survivors. The lake adjacent to the town has vanished beneath a vast chasm. A wounded soldier claims a fire-breathing demon emerged from the abyss. Murdoch insists that it must be a voter with fire skills. Lin and Peel transport the soldier to the next town for medical treatment, where they encounter Licht, Hina, and Nana. Murdoch confronts Licht, believing he is privy to information. Nana vehemently forbids them from fighting, so they instead engage in a drinking competition. Murdoch, under the influence of alcohol, accuses Licht of being the legendary ace and demands to know why the army is searching for him. Licht provokes Murdoch to consume even more alcohol, and Nana decides to join him. Lin becomes inebriated after only one glass of wine and asks about Hina's relationship with Licht. Eventually, Licht and Murdoch pass out. Lin and Hina both attempt to allow Licht to use their laps as a pillow. The lake abyss suddenly materializes, destroying a portion of the town and emitting a peculiar sound. Murdoch orders the evacuation of the civilians, while Licht detects the sound. He asserts that the sound is impossible because all demons of this type were vanquished during the Waste War. The abyss opens, revealing the demon to be a modern helicopter armed with machine guns and missiles. As he and Murdoch watch, Licht orders everyone to take cover as the helicopter attacks, but Murdoch opposes Licht assuming command. Licht reveals that he holds the military rank of colonel, attracting the attention of the helicopters, while Murdoch is perplexed as to how a criminal could be a colonel. As Licht attacks the helicopter, everyone begins to cheer, but the abyss stops him. Lin discloses that the military refers to the abyss arms as Althing. Althing attempts to seize the helicopter while Licht attacks him, but Althing is repeatedly stunned by the attack. Murdoch declines Hina's request for assistance because assaulting Althing is punishable by death, and he will not permit anyone to break the law. However, Murdoch loses his glasses accidentally. Murdoch, unable to see any violations of the law, attacks Althing, and the soldiers all go blind at the same time. They construct a ladder for Licht to climb into the helicopter, but he is shocked upon entering the cockpit. Sanohara Mizuka, the homicidally deranged ace of pursuit who possesses the number 32,000, suddenly shoots down the helicopter. She shoots Murdoch and begins murdering everyone, revealing that she is obsessed with carrying out the final order Licht gave her during the Waste War, which was to murder everyone. Sanohara reveals that Licht's real name is Rihido, and she demands that he revert to his former bloodthirsty personality and kill her. Otherwise, she will kill a nearby child. Licht snaps and kills her men so quickly that their bodies vanish. Licht finally reveals his identity to Hina and Murdoch. He is the plunderer, and he desires to seize control of the entire nation. Licht and Sanohara engage in a star stake, during which Licht is shot multiple times in the chest. Licht violently emits a red power, increasing the number on his sword to 57,000. and he begins to move so quickly that Sanohara cannot see him. Nana reveals that Licht has been taken over by Schmelman, a malevolent alternate personality. Sanohara is defeated by Schmelman, and her count drops to 16,000, prompting Nana to suspect that she, too, had been influenced by an evil personality. Nana explains, based on her knowledge of Licht's past, that Sanohara was the kindest of the aces and had never killed anyone. However, someone must have drugged her in order to fight Licht in the hopes that Schmelman would emerge. Hina desperately embraces him, prompting Schmelman to nearly kill her. However, Sanohara saves her. Schmelman has a flashback to modern Japan. When she and Licht attended high school together, Murdoch stops Schmelman and challenges him despite the bullet in his chest. Schmelman begins to cry and declares that he kills enemies so that his friends do not have to. Murdoch, deciding to honor this, fights with all his strength and creates an Iron Warrior that knocks out Schmelman, transforming him back into Licht. Murdoch loses consciousness due to his injury. A general tells several children an alternate, darker version of the tortoise and the hare, and one of his soldiers reveals his name to be General Schmelmanbach. As Licht recovers his star stake with Sanohara, the unfinished business with Althing prevents him from leaving, and he begins molesting the girls, excluding Hina. Supreme Commander Alexandrov Gregorovich, Murdoch's childish but doting adoptive father, summons him. Murdoch demands information about Sanohara's black uniformed soldiers. Gregorovich reveals that they are the Special Services Unit, or SSU, which provides spies, kidnappers, and assassins for the royal family. Licht was the strongest member of the strongest squad, as revealed by Gregorovich, who reveals the aces to be surgically modified human weapons for the waste wars. A side effect of the surgery was that the aces stopped aging, which explains why Licht is still alive. Gregorovich reveals unexpectedly that Murdoch's number has been reduced to 12,499 and demands to know Licht's location. Murdoch lies. The number drops to 12,498, and Gregorovich reveals that he, too, is aware of who attacked Althing. Murdoch returns to arrest Licht, who voluntarily surrenders. An espion nearby reveals that they desire Licht to continue plundering. Licht asks Murdoch a series of questions to determine if he is being blackmailed, to which Murdoch repeatedly lies, reducing his number to 12,496 before attempting to arrest Licht. Nana reveals that she is an ace and, utilizing an unexplained ability, sends Murdoch, Hina, Peel, and Lin to modern Japan, pleading with them to alter the past where she failed. Sanohara and Licht, then known as Rihido, are high school students in Japan. After following Rihido into the school, they are confronted by a delinquent, at which point Murdoch realizes that his ballot is missing and he can no longer control iron. After a global war, Captain Allen and Lieutenant Firendet explain that Japan is the only country left, and the school is actually a military academy. The headmaster, Major Schmelman, begins by reading his adaptation of The Tortoise and the Hare, before ordering Allen to shoot 3 laughing recruits. Schmelman teaches Rihido how to break his neck, but Rihido refuses and instead offers to die in Hina's place. Ignoring Schmelman's lethal aura, Firendet calms the situation by revealing that the recruits are alive because Allen used paint bullets to demonstrate the importance of following orders. Schmelman is intrigued by Rihido's potential, while Murdoch is perplexed by the fact that Rihido is obviously a young Licht, but looks nothing like his future self. Peel attempts to conduct online research on Althing, but is prevented. Allen instead explains that Althing was a super advanced technology of unknown origin that crashed to Earth during the war. It had the ability to compel all humans to obey its will in response to a vote, so humanity voted to destroy nuclear weapons and ban all war. However, there were unintended consequences that Allen refuses to discuss. Murdoch begins to suspect that Nana wants them to discover the true origin of Althing and save their future society.